Welcome to my parlor. I'm getting it started with one of my favorite ways to make a texture sheet, and that is carving it. This might not be for everybody, but I did a lot of linoleum printing in the past, and so I've done a lot of carving. The thing I really like about this is you can have a pattern on both sides. So how do you do it? The first thing you do is get a piece of this rubber. It is made by Speedball. That's who I actually prefer to buy this from. They have some other brands in some of your stores, but this is my favorite because it is a little easier to cut. The second thing you will need is your linoleum cutting tool, it's called. This particular one is also made by Speedball, and it's not very expensive. And the handy thing is all the different size tips come in the carrying case, so you can use those tips. And you'll see in a little bit which tips I use and like. As before with this, you pick out a design and use tracing paper to draw the design. What you're going to find out when you draw this is that you can't really do everything on here. Some of even the thinnest blade to cut is a little thick. So some of those lines you can't draw or cut out. But draw them anyway, because when you copy that onto your rubber, you're going to be able to see what you can and can't do, and you can change it accordingly. So what I do is I take some tracing paper or some copy sheets that you can also buy in the drawing section of your art store, and I tape it down. I tape it down separately from this piece because the things can move while you're drawing on them. And this one I would tape on both ends, but I'm trying to save time. So then I would take this and I would also tape it down. First, I cut this to the exact size of the piece of rubber that I used. And then I like to use a medium tip pen so that it doesn't cut through the paper, or a dull pencil so it doesn't cut through the paper when you draw. And just to take a shortcut here, I am just going to draw one part of this for you so you can see how it looks with the carbon paper. And then I'll do a little bit of cutting for you to show you how that works. Well, I didn't press hard enough, did I? Looks like I need to go back to the drawing board. I can see it on there, but let me try this again. Okay, I have roughly drawn this out. You might want to do it in a little more detail than you're going to see when I do the big reveal here, but I should have used a duller pen or a real soft pencil because it was cutting through the paper anyway. With rubber, you have to push a little harder than if you were just tracing with carbon paper. Now this is good enough for me because you can always go back to the original and refer to that what you want to do. So just to give you a little idea here, this is a rather fine point end right here. So this fine point end is something I would use to do thinner lines and smaller places. So I like to start with the bigger places. So let's go ahead and change our blade here. Slide it in there between those two parts and tighten it down. So where I think I'll start with this is a place where I know I want a little bit more depth and a bigger blade, and that's going to be right around this leaf right here. So this stuff is pretty soft, and as you can see, it goes down pretty easily. So don't push too hard or you'll end up cutting right through, or you'll press through so much that you won't be able to put a design on the other side, and you don't want that to happen. So there, we have a nice start to this leaf. And what I want you to notice too is on this leaf, it has two lines. So when I see two lines like that, I usually know that that's going to be one thickness of a blade. And I also have big spaces here. And if I'm going to use this for texture sheets in Mokumegane, I'm not going to want to leave those spaces alone. For example, on this one, I had spaces and I just went in and just made little divots out of there, or make extra marks on your leaves. So this stuff will go away. The carbon copy on there will go away. So don't feel like you have to remove it with your linoleum tool, your carving tool here. So I'm going to just make one more leaf edge out of this size. And then I'm going to go to a smaller tool to show you what you do with that one. Okay, I have the smaller one on here. And now what I would do with this smaller tool is I would do places like these little half circles here that I'd like to have, but since we're going to do several circles within a small area, we don't want to have them too big or too deep. So I'm using this one here. And you might, when you come back, decide to go ahead and use the thicker blade, like on the middle one, to give you more of a design differentiation there. But that's what the smaller one is going to look like. And that's going to give you, again, more texture difference for your Mokumegane sheets. Now, I mentioned circles were really hard. I really like what was done in the middle of this flower here, so I'm going to keep that. But I'm going to show you what you have to do when you do a circle. You have to start and turn the piece as you're doing it. Otherwise, you are not going to get a smooth and consistent line no matter how you try to move your hand. You just can't move your hand in a circle like that. And now I'm going to come back the other way, like this, because I want that entire shape there. So I don't want to use a thicker piece. And it's going to take some practice until you get those curves nice and smooth, because you're pushing with one hand and you're pulling around with another hand. And it's hard sometimes to keep uniform depth on here. But you know what? I know you can do it. So let's finish this spiral right here. And then I'm going to go on to something else. And I'll show you at the end of this video what this looks like when I have it all done. There. Not the best, but not the worst. And we're going to do something even more different with a texture sheet. This is a piece of wood that I have gotten out of a scrap pile. I go to my local lumber yard and they let me go through their pile and pick out whatever I want. And one of the things that I wanted was a template that was width and length of a bracelet. A lot of these texture sheets are not long enough for a bracelet in one piece. So I have a nice little block of wood here that I think is an excellent length and size for bracelet. And again, I have gone through my adult coloring book and I picked out this page. And here's the strip that I picked out that I would like to put on my bracelet form. And so what we're going to do is take our carbon copy paper and I'm going to tape this down. I made it just a little bit bigger than the edges so that I could tape the edges down and around to hold it on. And what we're going to do with this one is we're going to use our hot glue gun to make a wonderful template for a bracelet. So what I've done here is I laid this down, and one of the tips I forgot to tell you earlier was I usually try to use a different colored pen or pencil when I'm tracing so that I can see what I've traced over. So here I used a blue pen. A couple of things I want to note when you're making a pattern with the hot glue gun is that you have to forget about the detail. Instead of 2 lines here, I drew 1. And there's a center, and I just put where the dots are, because your glue is going to be thick and harder to control than a lot of things. So you just want a basic outline, and then you're going to not worry about the rest of it. And you'll see what I mean as I go along. So I have my pattern on here now, and it's time to get the hot glue gun going. Okay, I'm going to give this a try. It's been a while since I've done it, so I want to make sure I do it well and right for you. So this is a glue gun that's in the shape of a pen, and I find that that's a little easier for me to draw with anyway. And because I'm left-handed, I always start on the right side. And this is going to be a pattern that we're going to use for, you know, like makumegane and textures. So I'm not real worried about getting all of the lines perfectly smooth or straight. And my glue gun is going really slow today. And the other nice part of it is, like we talked about before, you can make things taller, which will make them deeper on your clay. So you can have the different depths to have different effects, especially on makumegane that has layers of colored clay. And I don't know if you can see this, but I have a thin line coming out right now. And like I said, it's going really slow, so I'm going to have to figure out why that is. But I'm just going to keep drawing. And then I'm going to show you the finished project, and then we'll do it on some clay so you can see how it works. Okay, look, what I have here is a mess. But a couple of things about that. The first is that if you're going to be using this for makumegane, that sort of thing, I wouldn't worry about it. My pen was working really sporadically, so I don't know if you see that. I got some nice detail over here. And don't worry about all those little threads, because we're just going to pull them off and cut them off. But then it kind of just, all along here, I got one big line. And I decided here to make the spokes filled in as opposed to just a line here. But what you can do, now you go back, I already did this to this one. If you want to make more detail here, just take your X-Acto knife and you can cut something into the glue. There I have a little divot cut out, and I just peel it off. So there, now I'm going back to my detail of the scalloped edge here. So you can do that if you want. Also, this got kind of sloppy here. You can cut that out. You can do whatever you want. What I find easier to do, and you might too, is just to freestyle it. Here's one that I did just freehanding circles, little curlicues. And I'm going to put that into my makumegane sheet too, and show you that even though it looks really sloppy, it ends up making a pretty neat pattern. So hold on, I'll be back with that. Remember this guy, the one that we started carving? Well, I finished carving it, and now I'm going to take a makumegane of, I have blue and burgundy and white with the gold leaf on it, the burgundies on the bottom, and I have a little bit of gold leaf in there. So we're going to try the ones that I've made and see how they look. You can probably see that I already ran the burgundy on this one, so there we are. Now what I'm going to do is let's just give it a little bit of shaving and see how the textures turned out on this one. I want this to stick to this, and let's just start shaving those tops off. Oh, nice blue coming through. So that was a success. The nice thing about the rubber too, though, is when you go ahead and do something like this, oh, that went way down deep, is you can always go back and recarve some of those areas to make them deeper if it turns out they didn't show up very much on here. But I'm seeing that even the lines that I made with the finest carving tool are showing up here. So that's pretty good. I like that. I did a test on these two, and I'm doing like a Makumagane sheet, and I ran my test on this one, and it turned out really crappy because I forgot to spray the water on it, and it stuck all over, and so I'm not showing you that one, but it'll work. It'll work. And this one, I remembered to spray the water on it, and I ran a test on it of the same colors, and here's what I got. This was done with the blue side down, and I just shaved the tops off and then I flattened it. If I wanted more color effects on there, I could have gone deeper, but I was pretty happy with this. So overall, with these methods, I like the openness of this. And the other thing that you can do is you can always go back with your glue gun and fill in spaces if you want something a little more detailed, like this one, because see how close everything is? And look at the difference in the pattern here. You're going to have a lot more stuff going on in this pattern. So that's where we're at. I think we're done for this one. I hope I've given you some ideas and some ways to try and make something that you need or that you want. I make virtually all my own texture sheets. I probably have about 50 of them at least, and I'm making new ones all the time, depending on what I need or what I want. If I want a certain design or a certain pattern, I still have the back of this one available to carve something else out of. And you can also do it on both sides of your wood with the glue if you want. So we're done. Thank you very much. I hope you got some ideas.